The Vancouver Canucks are a pretty weird team in that their bottom six players usually garner a very strange relationship with the fans. A lot of times, these guys become memes, these guys become, just kind of staples of the Vancouver Canucks inside joke community, and it's been like that for years. Going back to the Sea of Granlunds, where we had guys that pretty much all performed the same way, with guys like Vey and Chaput and Magna, going over onto the overpaid guys that Benning had, like Antoine Roussel and Beagle and Eriksson too. He honestly was kind of a part of that group for a while as well. The Vancouver Canucks have never really had the best bottom six. Actually, I take that back. Their bottom six when they were under Tortorella was actually pretty good. Sean Mathias, Mike Santorelli, Brad Richardson, yeah, those are some names pulled out of a hat, eh? But either way, the Vancouver Canucks bottom six has sort of attained somewhat of a meme status when it comes to this fan base. And this year specifically, we had ourselves Jim Rutherford, who earlier in the year called out the bottom six as just straight up being not good enough. Now, to be fair, the bottom six and a lot of the guys on the bottom six did start to produce more after Rutherford made those comments. You have guys like Highmore, Lamico, and Tyler Motte going out there and actually being pretty good difference makers to the point that Bruce Boudreau, Bruce there it is baby, is starting them out in games. Against the Islanders, I believe they were the number one starting lineup, so there you go. It's the energy, it's the passion, it's the drive, it's the work ethic. These guys go out there, they actually do stuff on the ice, and recently they have been getting rewarded for their play. But when it comes to Tyler Motte, he's the guy that's probably one of the more interesting situations in the Vancouver Canucks, because when it comes to unrestricted free agents to be, he's one of the only ones that the Vancouver Canucks are probably in a little pickle about when it comes to whether or not they keep him or let him go. Tyler Motte right now is making $1.2 something? Yeah, $1.225 million a season, and this is his last season. He's 26 years old. He will be a UFA after this year. Now, there are some other UFAs the Canucks have that will be UFAs. Chason, DiGiuseppe, Madison Bowie, I believe, and then, of course, Yaroslav Halak, but, yeah, nobody really cares too much about those guys in the same way they care about Tyler Motte. No disrespect, it's just kind of how it is. But Motte has been one of the best Vancouver Canucks bottom sixers we've had in a long time. He steps up when the going gets tough. The guy somehow finds himself a way to score very clutch goals at clutch times. And when he isn't scoring goals, he's going out there penalty killing, playing his heart out. He's like Matthew Highmore out there, but he's just been on this team for a longer amount of time, so a lot of Canucks fans feel a certain affinity towards Tyler Motte, which I totally understand. But when it comes to whether or not you trade or keep Tyler Motte, here's an update we had from Frank Saravelli on a recent Daily Faceoff article. This is the Icebreakers, updates on Knight, Paul, KK, and then Motte himself. This article from a few days ago highlights just what the market price might be for a guy like Tyler Motte and whether or not this is juicy enough to allow the Canucks to keep him or send him away. Let's read what Saravelli has to say. With so much attention on potential trade chips, Brock Besser and JT Miller, there has been a comparatively little focus on the only player the Canucks must absolutely make a decision on before the March 21st trade deadline, Tyler Motte. Sources say new Canucks GM Patrick Allvin and Motte's representation, Vancouver-based Rich Evans of Waserman Sports, have indeed met, but they have not held substantive talks on a contract extension to stay in Vancouver. Motte, who turns 27 next week, has proven he can reliably drive a line in the Canucks' bottom six. He has scored 13 goals over his last 82 games, and he's part of Vancouver's first PK unit on a team that desperately needs more PK help. Yeah, they do. There's seemingly the framework of what a market value deal for Motte could look like if it were to come together over the next 17 days. See Sean Corrali's 4x2.5 million deal in Columbus. So, pause right there. Frank Saravelli is highlighting that Tyler Motte, should he hit the open market, or should he actually come back to Vancouver, re-sign with the team, we're looking at something that could see him get paid out 4 years, $2.5 million a year per. Now, I love Tyler Motte. I think everybody does. But I think I'm kind of done with the idea of the Vancouver Canucks spending that amount of money, anything over $1.5 million a year, on bottom 6 players. Does this new Vancouver regime philosophically want to commit that amount of salary cap space to bottom 6 players? That type of spending, with Beagle and Burcell, really hurt during the Jim Benning era. Only one thing is clear, though, Saravalli writes. If the Canucks and Motte are unable to come to an agreement on a new deal before the deadline, he will be playing elsewhere on March 22nd and beyond. The Canucks know they're not in a position to keep Motte and allow him to walk in the offseason for nothing. That part at the end is the most important here, and it's why Motte's deadline on the team is a lot sooner than other players, because Motte is valuable. We know that he is a good player, and for what it is that he does in the lineup, he's actually a lot better than the traditional idea that you have of a fourth liner. But this is not the player that you go out there and commit term and money to that is in the ballpark of 4 years and $2.5 million a season, in my opinion. So if the Vancouver Canucks look at Tyler Motte and they say, look, you're a good player, this and that, penalty killing, scoring in clutch moments, whatever, but you're just going to demand too much, they can't keep this guy. Because if they keep this guy past the March 21 trade deadline, then they're not going to re-sign him, and then he's going to go to free agency, and then the Canucks are going to lose him for nothing. You can't pull off a Toffoli or a Markstrom or a Tanev or a Hughes here with this one. You have to get value, especially when you're a team like Vancouver, who is so fragile and who looks so good some nights. Other nights they look absolutely terrible. This team is not good enough to afford to be able to lose talents like that. So, for Tyler Motte, if you're not going to re-sign this guy, you have to trade him. You have to trade him before the 21st trade deadline, and you're going to allow some other team to go out there and give him that kind of money. Sure, is he a Barclay Goodrow? Is he a Blake Coleman, first-round pick type of situation? Probably not. Tyler Motte's not going to get you a first on the trade market. If he does, I'll eat my words. Knock on wood. But that's just how I see it. Tyler Motte is a good player. He's a good dude. Everybody here respects Tyler Motte, but he's not worth $2.5 million a year. Remember that article we were talking about yesterday in the whole Bowen, Byram, JT Miller thing? Yeah, that piece on The Athletic by Drance and Dhaliwal? Well, they also talked about Tyler Motte in that piece as well. Talks have been quiet, according to them, between Motte's camp and the Canucks. The club, meanwhile, has been actively gauging the market for Motte's services in recent weeks. However, things can indeed change in an instant. Motte, however, now feels like the likeliest player to be dealt on the Vancouver Canucks. This was also on a Donnie and Dolly radio bit. Okay, no, not radio bit. Donnie and Dolly is a TV show, right? It's on Czech TV. And on the show, they had Thomas Drance on the program to speak about the Canucks and who are most likely to be traded. Drance went out there and said, Tyler Motte, Yaroslav Halak, the two UFAs to be. These guys are the most likely, in his opinion, to get traded by the Vancouver Canucks as we approach the 2022 trade deadline. And so, for Tyler Motte specifically, I pity the guy because we have to go out there and talk about him like this, but this is just kind of the economics of the NHL, right? Saravalli also did say this, that I think there are a number of guys in the category above Tyler Motte in the trade market, so he's implying that there isn't really too much trade value. That's kind of aligning what I was thinking as well. You're not going to go out there and expect a Blake Coleman, Barclay Goodrow type return for Tyler Motte. Like anything in the third round or a second round pick territory, I feel like is pretty good. You got to remember where this guy came from too. Tyler Motte was initially acquired by the Canucks in the gosh darn Thomas Vanek trade all those years ago. Remember that? 2017, 2018, Thomas Vanek. I honestly still really do appreciate everything that Thomas Vanek did because he really did help Brock Besser transform into an NHL star. But Thomas Vanek got traded for Jokinen, Tyler Motte, and that was it. And I remember being really pissed off that there was no draft pick involved and that there was no prospect coming back that was of significant value. Oh, Tyler Motte? Who the heck is Tyler Motte? So, for Tyler Motte, he did score some very clutch goals. There are some very good memories for him and the Vancouver Canucks, and the fan base adores him so because of it. But that's a lot of money. $2.5 million a year? That's like Jay Beagle, Antoine Roussel spending right there. And I think the Canucks need to go out there and find more guys that are like Tyler Motte, that go out there on a super cheap cap hit and do the things that Tyler Motte is able to do, all while at a reduced price. Then go out there and overpay Tyler Motte for being Tyler Motte, because Tyler Motte is, quite frankly, one of the most valuable bottom six players the Canucks have had in a long time. So, let me know in the comments your thoughts about this dilemma over here. Do you want to trade Tyler Motte or re-sign this guy? I'm on the boat of trading him if he goes out there and demands $2.5 million a year, but Of course, things can change. If he goes out there and accepts like a $1 million deal tomorrow, then okay, that's fine by me. But talk to me in the comments, like your thoughts. I hope you enjoyed this Boucher 99. And bye.